The Radio Today podcast with Jen Seyderhelm.
Hi and welcome. This week it's a Heard special as Commercial Radio and Audio held their annual audio showcase. I'll catch up with Steve Ahern in a moment, who was there for a reflection on the event, and later the National Radio Airplay Chart Song of the Week. Commercial Radio and Audio unveiled its industry roadmap at the annual audio showcase event Heard, with Australia's commercial networks uniting to deliver what agencies and advertisers have asked for: frictionless access to audio's growing reach and proven effectiveness. For more on the event, Steve Ahern joins me.
It was a really good day. It was an afternoon, so that in itself was strategic, so that people from ad agencies could get their work out done in the morning and then come to the event in the afternoon and have some drinks at the end of the day. So I thought it was really well done and very positive for the industry. Very well prepared and staged, a pretty full house at the International Convention Centre in Sydney, packed with the right people from the advertising industry, agency people and others. There were a few things I really liked about the style of it, and I posted one of them on our Radio Info Facebook page. At the opener, it really was focusing on the power of audio. So there were words on the screen and there were sound effects and music and jingles and things to get your attention. So there was no one standing there talking. There were no pictures, no videos. It was words and audio. And I thought, this is really putting the money where not the mouth is, but the ears are, and really says it all. And the other thing I liked, there were a couple of great photos, and one of them's in one of our stories where they used audio symbolism. So in one of the stories, there's a photo of Lizzie Young, the CEO, standing in front of mixer faders. And they're illustrating, plus 33% for audio, and kind of, if you mix it right, then if you add audio to the mix of video and social advertising, etc., then you're going to get this extra benefit. And I love the graphic because it said it really easily and immediately, but it was also using radio imagery. And I just thought, okay, these guys have got it. They're right on task. The board and Lizzie were very upfront about the purpose. Audio advertising works. That was, of course, the message, and a lot of sub-messages on that. You, as in advertisers, can benefit by using audio, but they also were very upfront saying audio revenue has declined to our industry slightly by 2.9%, I think it was. And we want that revenue back. We want to convince you to place more advertising on radio, podcasting in the Australian audio industry. And we want to get that back. I really liked that there was a direct approach. And after that, then she outlined what is the industry doing to get it back. And things that audio industry is doing is the audio ID. That's rolled on further from where it was a year ago. So you can target your audiences better. And there was a really good presentation of how that can be done by demographics, geographics, etc. And that the new buying platform, which was introduced last year, is up and running, and it makes it easier to buy.
With what you were just saying about the audio ID and the progress on that, so did you feel like they were also speaking to the regional markets as well as the metro markets?
That's a really good question, because the focus has been on metros and the big groups, and understandably, because that's where the majority of money is, the relationship between the ad agencies and the big networks. So absolutely sensible that has been the focus in the introductory phase. But I asked that same question afterwards when everyone was out in the foyer. There was a DJ, there were drinks, and everybody was meeting, gossiping, etc. And I got to talk to two regional sales people involved in sales. I won't mention any names of anyone I talked to because they all said, now be careful, it could end up on Radio Info. Well, it may end up on Radio Info or Radio Today, but no names. So I asked them exactly that, I didn't see your logo up there. And they said, that's okay. We've been in the discussions. Regional is coming next. There's work to be done, but you'll eventually be able to buy regional radio placement in this buying platform as well. So there is a plan for it. It's mostly focused on the big metro networks at the moment, but it's going to roll out and be available to all the commercial radio groups that want it.
That's good, because funny you were saying that, and that they were upfront about the decrease, but it's been the regional markets that have actually seen the increase in radio revenue to some degree last year. So, I mean, it's certainly not something they would want to neglect. So who was there?
Yeah,
who of
absolutely.
the radio talent was there?
There was Ricky Lee and Tim, the new hosts of Nova's Sydney Breakfast Show. Tim Blackwell has wanted to do Sydney breakfast in his hometown for 25 years since he's been in radio, and he's finally achieved it. And, they had a nice banter going.
We are so proud to be in Sydney Breakfast. It is the dream gig for the both of us. I mean, it's been a dream for the last 25 years for Tim and mine since November last year.
Late October.
Yeah, but we are. We're so psyched and we're so proud.
So psyched we said psyched. We promised ourselves that we're not going to let it go to our heads though. So no diva antics here.
Exactly. The Nova staff who carried us here today on their backs from the office in Pyrmont. No, we are just like them.
Ben Fordham spoke. He talked about the connection, the intimate connection of particularly talk radio personalities.
We're all friends, which is nice. I do get a nice little text message from time to time from Kyle Sandilands when we come out on top on the ratings. In fact, he used to do it more, and then when we were consistently flogging him, he stopped sending the text messages. But early on, he said, "Congratulations, cockhead," which in Kyle Sandilands' language is a really touching way of reaching out to a radio colleague. I regard radio as sticky. I use this word sticky when I talk about radio because I've spent a lot of my media life on TV, but I started as a work experience kid in radio, 15, started full-time at 18 at 2UE as a reporter, then a political reporter. Then I went into TV, a current affair, Today Show, bit of 60 Minutes, a few other things, and I then reached a point where I had to choose between the two. I promised my wife it would be 1 year of both. And after 4 years and us wanting to start a family, she said, "What are we going to do about this?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to get rid of one." And she said, "Oh, which one?" And of course I hadn't thought about it until then, but I said, "I'm going to focus on radio." And it surprised a few people because they're like, "Oh, I thought you'd stick with the TV." And I went, no, I love TV, but I've always regarded radio as the roller coaster and TV as more of the Ferris wheel. I love the Ferris wheel. There's something about radio just being live and being in the middle of it.
He gave an example of the way that talk radio is reaching out through other platforms to really grab new audiences without taking away from what's done on the radio. But he was saying that one of his producers, very young, still teenage, 19 or 20 producer, said, "We've got to be on TikTok, Ben." And Ben said, "Well, I was a bit skeptical, but here's someone with a good idea who had a different point of view from mine." So I said, "Yeah, let's try it. Go ahead. You do it." And the producer filmed an interview with Prime Minister Albanese where Ben challenged him, waving his finger at him, saying, "Now that's not true, Prime Minister," or something of that sort. And then the producer put it up on TikTok, and people after a while were coming up to him saying, "Oh, there's the finger waving guy who gave Albo a hard time." So he said, it's proving that what we do on live talkback news talk radio also resonates on other platforms as well. Christian O'Connell was there. Ben also talked about being on air for the Bondi shooting, as did Christian, and that was his first day being in Sydney. Timing, but Christian was saying that it really reinforced to him that after the jokes and the topics and all the data and all of that, really the strength of radio hosts, radio personalities, is that genuine connection with the audience. And he said he felt it very much on that day, and he was sad, of course, but glad that he was able to do the show live in Sydney on that day and just bring comfort to the people of Sydney. And then there was Nath and Emma from today's breakfast show. They were also had a great fun banter going about personalities, and Nate tried dancing and doing the dance moves, and Emma was saying, no, that's why you're on radio, don't dance. So funny, but also the purpose was to get those big name stars up there in front of the advertisers, and to reinforce that thing that it's about the people, it's about the direct connection of our personalities with each individual listener.
Yeah, before we talk about the speakers that they had on the day, I have to additionally say that Christian and Ben Ben was on break and returned from break for when the Bondi shootings occurred, and Christian was planning to gently ease himself into Sydney, and so Christian wasn't required to be on air that day, and I think both of them went above and beyond. So who were the special speakers at Herd?
Yes, well, Mark Ritson and Lara Thom were the two featured speakers, but I'll also mention too the two Ace Radio hosts who talked about regional radio, and they did very well. Again, I heard from the floor later that they've just been signed for a few more years in their breakfast show with Ace Radio. Ace is very happy that they're on board. They're performing very well for them. And their point was that placing your advertising on regional radio can give you a 33% uplift on benefits of your campaign. So they had a great message. And then rolling from them was Mark Ritson. Now, Mark Ritson is a marketing professor, but you've probably never seen an academic lecture given like he does. So he paces around the stage and he waves his hands about, and he's got all this fantastic data on slides to base his recommendations on. But he just delivers it in such an engaging way.
Not enough audio ads use the theatre of imagination to create an emotional charge. You want that to aid in your advertising effect. Based on the emotion, then, make sure you have distinctive sonic brand assets present throughout the ad. Every second belongs to you. You've paid for it, brand it, use it. It will be to your benefit. Most of you in this room don't make your work distinctive enough. You know it's you, but who cares about you? The consumer isn't paying attention. And finally, think carefully about duration. Not the length of an individual ad, you're looking in the wrong place. The length of the campaign. Go for multi-year, not multi-day. Yeah? This is a long-running challenge.
And again, talking afterwards, there were 3 or 4 people who were saying things like, these were advertising agency people, like probably middle career people. And they were saying, I asked my boss, can I go to Mark Ritson's mini MBA for marketing advertising? And the boss wasn't too sure, but now I've seen him. I feel like I've had a great lecture and I want more. So I'm going back to my boss to pick that up. And then I was talking to another guy who had done that course a year or 2 before and was saying it has made the difference in selling, because now his clients consider him a kind of an additional marketing asset in their business rather than just someone coming to sell radio ads. So there was a lot of kudos for what Mark Ritson does. And the core of what he was saying was, I loved his play of words too. He was talking about big, beautiful data, like Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. It was a terrible bill that was all about taxes and whatever, but he gave it a name. And whenever people had to talk about it, they had to say big, beautiful bill. So there was Ritson saying, beautiful data or big, beautiful data. And I liked that, and it was fun, and it's typical Ritson. So his big, beautiful data message was very complex and a really detailed, interesting marketing study. But the takeaway was allocate 11%, at least 11% of your budget to audio advertising, and that's going to make everything else you do more effective. And they gave examples of effectiveness. New customer acquisition, 37% in a campaign that uses audio, but 22% if you don't use audio. Brand distinctiveness, almost double once you add just 11% of audio placement. Price insensitivity, which was an interesting term that he used, that, we usually hear about price sensitivity, but he was saying that price insensitivity, you shouldn't be worrying too much about price. Price is just a factor of the benefit that you get or the effectiveness of your campaign. So, don't be haggling over price your ads very well, but also think that your clients shouldn't be just trying to discount everything, put a value on it and sell the value rather than sell the price. And I thought that was great. And audio connects with both the heart and the head. And if you add audio to a campaign, you'll deepen emotional appeal. So without audio, a campaign, in one of the studies they did, had 41% emotional appeal, and with audio, 51%. So it got it over more than half the campaign. So there's a whole lot of really well-researched data. We've seen this before. This same study's been done by Ritson and Rob Britton over a few years, but that's the point of it, really, that each year it's more and more reinforced how, if you do the audio right, if you place it, if you don't keep changing the ad every couple of weeks, leave the audio ads on for a whole year to reinforce what you're doing in your TV campaign. You might have enough money for 3 months of TV, and you might have some on socials and AdWords. Spread all that out across the year, but in the background, keep the audio advertising campaign going for the whole year, because for the price of, probably a week of television, you've probably got several months of audio placement on radio and in podcasts as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I remember last time I saw Ritson, he was talking, it's, 7% that radio sits out of the budget? So, 11% is not a great stretch. And I like that the aspirations are realistic too. It is that price insensitive. It's not much to make it 11% of your marketing budget. And
so true.
And Lara Thom.
Yes. Now, she was so engaging. I was talking to her afterwards too. She was a newspaper journalist for a while. It turned out that we were writing for The Australian at the same time years ago.
Wow.
And she then moved into radio and then into marketing. So her long career has been in marketing, but she came at things from a journalistic point of view, which was really nice. And she kind of, as a marketer, the chief marketing officer of Guzman y Gomez, she came at it from a real analytical point of view. And the reason why she was there is that Guzman y Gomez, that fast food Mexican style chain, is very successful, and it's the success of her and her marketing team. And so she talked about how radio has been really important in that. when they first started, being a franchise business, they had no money. So they just tried to do free posts on social media. Then they got a bit of money and they thought, okay, well, where can we get our best effect? We'll get it on radio. So they used audio, they used voice, they thought about the campaigns. Her focus was the founder of Guzman y Gomez, and he begins with a greeting and ends with love ya in his American accent. And so she was telling the story of how the American accent and the way he opened and closed his pieces was cut through on the radio where other ads sounded similar. And so it turned out to be very important and very successful as the business grew. And of course, they expanded, but they kept their radio component, except, she said, and she said, like any marketer, you have to test these things and keep testing. So they dropped the radio advertising out of their campaign for a couple of weeks. And she said, wow, we put it back really quickly because it showed us just how things fell off quickly and the kind of reaction we were getting from customers just dropped away. So we knew that radio must be successful. And the lovely thing about that interview, Lizzie interviewed her, she was telling the story of the best radio ad that they've done, which was how nobody could work out how to pronounce the name.
Let's take a listen.
Guzman y Gomez.
Guzman and Gomez.
Guzman y Gomez. Guzman y Gomez?
Guzman.
You can't say it, but you sure can eat it.
Guzman y Gomez?
That's how I always say it. Guzman y Gomez. So why?
Guzman y Gomez. Guzman y Gomez.
Guzman y Gomez, Australia's favorite burrito.
Burritos.
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 Love ya.
I think we ran that ad 6 years ago and we're still talking about it. Radio really needs to put their hand up and help brands like us. There was I don't even know if she's still working in radio, a lady called Lisa who worked. Lisa, are you here? Where's Lisa? Is she here? Lisa, you bloody legend. Lisa wrote this, okay, I'm giving her credit. Lisa. So Lisa, be here, Lisa.
This is totally unscripted.
This is so unscripted. Lisa was working at Nova at the time, and I'll give her credit. She is one of the most, not just the most creative, but the most proactive radio execs I've ever met in my life. And she was on the phone weekly pitching new ideas. She's a real creative. Like, watch out, world, that woman's taking over. And most of our radio ideas came from Lisa. But she was finding, as she was briefing crews nationally on how to say Guzman and Gomez, they kept fucking it up. And she was really struggling with how to get people to say it. And she called me up, she was like, La, I've just got this idea, I need to pitch it to you. No one can say your name. How about we just run this 30 second ad of real life people just stuffing up your name, and then Stephen at the end going, here's how you say it. And the thing for us that worked is we were really working on brand awareness at the time. Like, that so helped from a brand awareness point of view of just 30 seconds of people just saying our brand name. And it went on to become one of the most talked about, most celebrated campaigns for us, that we then migrated that into social and across all of our content. And it's kind of still within folklore. So thank you, Lisa. It was a real game changer for us.
Just spontaneously, that was also something that really proved that if you get the connection right, then radio and ad agencies can really have a good thing going.
That's amazing, Steve, because it also, you know how we all have our anecdotes that we bring, but it makes the anecdote real to the rest of the audience that that person was there. That's so cool. And I'm really pleased.
It was so good.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing I think about there is that probably that sales executive still working in radio, which is also like a testament to...
Says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, doesn't it? So overall impression?
Oh, highly professional. They understood all the messages, subliminal and obvious, and to bang the same drum they were all banging. It was heard by the advertising agencies. The number of times people gave the emphasis, used the pun, seen not heard or heard not seen, everyone was on message. So it was a day with a lot of substance. The messaging was clear. Then the networking afterwards was also very well done and very professionally done. I think everyone would have left with a really good impression of the radio industry and the audio industry in 2026 in Australia. Thanks,
Steve. There's plenty more you can read on that on the Radio Today and Radio Info websites too. The RCS National Radio Airplay Chart Song of the Week this week takes us 100 times around the sun with Guy Sebastian. It debuted at number 31 on the chart with 239 spins across 23 stations.
Over 100 times around the sun. It feels like we just begun and we're not nearly done.
And that's all for this week. I'll catch you next time.
Radio Today with Jen Seyderhelm. Find more at radiotoday.com.au.